So fun.
All right. I see people trickling in from the waiting room. We're going to give it another minute or so for folks to get in here. Thanks for joining us on what I hope is a beautiful spring day for everybody else. Here in Philadelphia, it is sunny and nearly 80 degrees, which
Is it
is,
really?
yeah, after the
Oh
winter we
my
had, I
word.
need this. Yeah. When we're done here, I'm
Wow.
logging off and getting outside.
Yes, yes, you are. That's amazing. Portland, Oregon, it's not raining, so that's a plus. It's kind of cold though today. I was
Mm.
surprised. Mm-hmm.
Well, spring is around the corner. It won't be cold
Rings
for
around the
long.
corner. Yay.
All right, let's go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us for today's webinar, An Introduction to Amplify Desmos Math for High School. My name is Heath. I'm the Marketing Director for Core Math here at Amplify. I'm joined today by my colleague Cassandra, who's one of our product specialists who spends all of her time crisscrossing the country talking to educators like you about Amplify Desmos Math. I'm honestly
I
surprised
do.
you are home.
I know. I'm surprised I'm home. It's
That's
amazing. But
great.
I wanted to be in a stable position for this webinar, Heath.
Yes, love
Yeah.
that. Cass is going to give us an overview of Amplified Desmos Math and show us some of the lesson. Then we're going to bring it all back together for a live Q&A at the end. Before we get started, I will handle the boring logistical stuff. You're going to be on mute for the duration of this webinar, but we do want to hear from you. Use the Zoom chat and Q&A features liberally as Cass is presenting. I'll keep an eye on those things and answer questions I can as we go. And then, of course, we will leave time for that Q&A at the end of the session live. This session is also getting recorded. Tomorrow you will receive an email with a link to that recording. If there's any parts you want to revisit, or maybe you're just so blown away by something Cass said that you have to go and share it with a
Have to.
colleague. I know that happens anytime I see her talk. So I think that's enough from me for now. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to the real expert and star of the show, Cassandra.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I am a senior STEM product specialist with Amplify, so I work with our science and math programs. And yeah, we've had a really fun year launching Amplify Desmos Math and getting into our high school program. This is like our first little, what's the word? Soiree, foire? What am I looking for? Where you get into something where you haven't been there before. That's what we're doing with high school. It is wild because we've typically worked in elementary and middle school, and you high school bunch are a fun bunch. I will say that. It's been a minute since I've been in the high school classrooms. I was mostly in middle school, but I did get to end my career in high school. So we're happy to share this with you. And I imagine some of you are very familiar with what we've been doing and some of our history. So we'll get into that as well. All right, I'm going to share my screen and we'll start out actually with just a little bit of a warm-up activity. Oh, I got a little pop up here. There we go. Okay, let me move a couple things around, just make sure we're all in the right spot here. So, warm-up activity you can use as Keith. I can't even remember your name today, Heath. That's amazing. Maybe you need a new name. I don't know. Anyways, let's continue. We're going to start with a warm-up activity from geometry. As Heath mentioned, you can use your Q&A or your chat. Chat box is probably a great one for this. This is our very first unit from geometry, and we like to get our students started with a low floor task that everybody can participate in. So, in your chat, which one doesn't belong? And see if you can give me a reason why. Let's use some of that mathematical language. As we know, our students are going to use potentially some of that informal language as well, which is great. We want to get started with that as they belong. Which one doesn't belong? A, B, C, or D, and see if you can give me a little bit of a reasoning behind that. I definitely know which one I don't like. Heath, do you have any preferences here on which one has to go?
Oh gosh, I haven't thought about it.
Well, you got to do the math today. That's why we're
I
here.
know. I wasn't expecting to have to do math, Cass.
This is easy math. Which one doesn't belong? It's got to go.
I will say D,
Ooh, and why don't you like D?
and I swear I'm not copying what I saw in the chat, but as Vanita said, the flower is not in the center of the shape that is inside of the circles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, that
I
was
don't know
my
if that's
initial.
right.
Yeah, well, there is no right answer. That's the beauty of this type of warm-up is that everybody gets to participate in that discussion and we can come up with different reasons behind that. Yes, there is no right answer in math. I know, wild, but kind of a cool way to get started in math. Now we got some things coming in. Couple different D's. I am also on the D. I want it to be centered. There's just like a space in that I just don't like. It feels a little off to me. C, Paula says the polygon is not regular. Love it. Paula's really going for our geometry course language here. Another C, the shapes within the multi-shape are being cut and not whole. If we were in person, I would ask you for a little bit more information on that one. And D, oh, Tony, another reason for D. I like this, Tony. The smallest area value. Okay. So, this is the way that we like to get things started in math. We want all of our students to be part of a conversation, to know that they absolutely can do math. And of course, this isn't a super rigorous task, but this is a way that everybody can participate and we can start to build on that informal language, connect to that formal language, and get that connection to really rigorous things that we're doing in mathematics. Now, you may not have seen these geometry pieces if you are someone who is familiar with Desmos, because these came out very, very recently. We also have a new geometry tool, is part of our course, which I'm going to have you play around with today. But this is a foundation of where we're coming from. So I do want to give us a little bit of history. In the chat, you can let me know if you have heard of Desmos, if you have used Desmos, and oh, look, I gave myself a thumbs up, Heath. That's awesome. I didn't even know I could do that. It's a positive space here over in Portland, Oregon. If you have used Desmos and or maybe if you've created something on Desmos. So let me know in the chat where you are in that space. Heath and I should have made a bet about this today. How many of you are familiar with Desmos at the high school level? We find it is a very, very high percentage. Okay, so a couple of things coming in. People are familiar. They've heard about it. Some of us have used it all the time. Esther, if you don't mind giving me a little bit more information, I'd love to hear if you've used like the activities or if you're building your own stuff. That'd be great to know as well. Okay, we got some graphing calculator. Awesome. Wonderful. So it looks like most of us have at least heard of Desmos. So I want to give you a brief history. This will be very brief. This isn't a history course today, it's mathematics. So, brief history of who we are. Desmos started as a free graphing calculator, all about access, right? The founder of that really believed that all students should have access to be able to reach higher level math courses. And oftentimes, that graphing calculator was an inhibitor for students. That graphing calculator still exists. It's now on state tests across the board. It's on our SAT, ACT tests as well. And that will always remain free. Important piece for us. However, we then started to build out a few more things. So on this platform that was created, this Desmos dashboard, we started to realize that there's a lot of things that we can do in visualizations for students to provide a really great way to build conceptual understanding, a way to try something out, a way to model mathematics. So some activities started to be built digitally. Okay. Now, about this time, there were some little conversations happening between Desmos, between Amplify, and they said, hey, we love what you're doing. We said, hey, we love what you're doing. Why don't we do this together and let's build something out? And what we have done from there is a full comprehensive curriculum. It's actually TK12. So Amplify Desmos Math is the beautiful baby, the love child of Amplify and Desmos that has come about. So it absolutely uses those technological pieces from Desmos that provide us with that amazing way to visualize math, play around with math, facilitation tools for you to be able to build stuff out on your own, customize lessons, all of that exists. Yes. However, what we heard from people who were using a lot of that is we want a full curriculum, right? We want a full scope and sequence. We want to be able to use this for every day in the lesson. We want a full teacher's plan. We want assessment and reporting all connected. So that's what we did. We made that for you. Amplify Desmos Math, fully blended, full course scope and sequence, both for you and for your students. Okay. Lots of other fun things coming in the chat. I love how we're using that piece before. So I do want to be very clear from the beginning about what the difference is because some people say, okay, well, I've been using Desmos. I have some free activities. Why don't I keep using that? And I say, absolutely keep using that, right? We love that. We want you to have that in your classrooms. But what would it look like, the difference between Desmos, those free materials, and a full amplified Desmos Math comprehensive curriculum? So you can kind of see that on your screen here. So the free Desmos, you still will always have that customizable digital dashboard. That will always be free, imperative for you to have access to those things. You still have some digital facilitation tools. You have access to about 20-ish lessons per course. Okay, so when we're looking at algebra, geometry, algebra 2, or integrated courses, there's about 20 of those lessons online. But take a look at that right-hand side. When we look at that full scope and sequence, 160 lessons on average, maybe a little high actually. I think it's more like 155. And everything in that is built out, all of the print resources, all of the digital resources are fully customizable. So when you look on the left on those free Desmos activities, you can't customize those, right? We have those kind of in a lockdown space. But when you have the full comprehensive curriculum, you can customize, edit, share all of those things. And then, of course, that assessment and reporting. So let's take a little bit deeper dive into what this looks like. In terms of materials, for you as educators, you will have a fully blended teacher experience. You'll have a print teacher's edition, which I will say at the high school level, I see that used. 50, 60%. It's really up to you, right? If you like to have a print lesson plan to be able to go back to look at that differentiation, to pull in some of those support pieces, great. But a lot of times I see my high school teachers using that digital dashboard because everything in print is there. When we look at that digital dashboard, you have the courses listed there and then facilitation tools for digital lessons. When we look at that, we're actually going to play around on this today a little bit. But that digital lesson dashboard is a really great way to facilitate mathematics. I don't want us to think when students are on devices that it's a one-on-one environment, a quiet classroom, you assign something, they're going and doing their thing. That's absolutely not how this works. You are the facilitator of the math, right? You are guiding them to grade level instruction. When it's a digital lesson, you'll use this digital dashboard and a lot of our tools on here. So you can see on this first page that it is fully customizable, as we talked about. You can add things from an item bank, which is great, searchable item bank by skill or by standard. But here's the beauty, right? Take a look at this screen. I pulled this one because I absolutely love this. This is a non-routine task that I did with students, and I provided one of our tools, Polypad, which has a bunch of different math tools and resources on there for them to start to begin to solve this problem. And you can see on your teacher dashboard here that you have access to everything that they're doing. So this is a getting them started. We're looking at their progression, and then we're using those tools like a pause to bring everybody back together, to talk about the math, to have students explain why they got there or how did this strategy work. So that digital space isn't, again, that one-on-one quiet time. It's a way for us to drive instruction. Last little piece here on your dashboard. Oops, sorry, clicked one too fast there. Just looking at both that digital and student space. Again, fully customizable, both for that digital and print. So upper right-hand side, you can always click copy and edit. And then on your paper resources, yes, paper resources, you can drop those into your Google dashboard to make accommodations or modifications as needed. Now let's take a look at the student side of things. This is definitely going to be a little bit different for those of you who have used some of those free Desmos activities. The student side is also fully blended. So students will have their digital dashboard as well as a consumable workbook. And when we take a look into that workbook, what we've done here is created a space for digital and print lessons to look a little bit different. So you can see on the left-hand side is a Cornell note style page. So we're going to use that for our digital lessons. That's a way for us to know when to kind of pause, bring students back, write in those key takeaways from the activities that we're doing. And then on the right-hand side, you're seeing just a full print lesson. So we're going to suggest when we would use those technology pieces, and then when we'd say, you know what, students need to be working in print. We're going to use some physical tools here, especially in that geometry space. Okay. In that technology side of things, though, it is really purposeful. There's a reason why we want students on devices. It's to be able to visualize, it's to be able to try something out, to create that connection and build that conceptual understanding. And I love this little quote here. I pulled in a couple things from High School Mathematics, Reimagined, Revitalized, and Relevant. I'm not getting paid for this, although that would be nice. If anybody works for NCTM, just let me know that I can get some kickbacks here for this book. But I actually really appreciated a lot of the things that it said in this space for high school, right? We're kind of trying to build something different. Technology plays a crucial role in that. It can absolutely be used to create a dynamic environment to make abstract concepts more concrete. And I think that really applies to what we're doing. Another great example of how we use this is mathematical modeling. Okay, so we can have a device and we can use that and use that technology side of things, but take a look at how this is being used. We have a device for a group of students. They're going to try out some of the things and some of the ideas that they come up with. And then we're also using that vertical non-permanent surface. Okay, so again, it's not a one-on-one quiet classroom. It's a way for us to really draw in our students. Here's a couple other glimpses into what it looks like in our classrooms. Students working collaboratively, using technology purposefully, and then also using that teacher presentation screen to get up onto a whiteboard. So our materials, fully blended, a little bit different than things that you may have seen in some free Desmos activities, but really able to make it a comprehensive curriculum. Let's dive into a little bit deeper of our lesson structure and how we elicit that student thinking. I said collaborative classrooms, right? Students talking. It's funny because high school students love to talk, except for when we ask them to talk about math. Then they're like, nothing to say. We're like, okay, we need to space it a way to elicit that thinking from our students and to really help them understand this that math requires thinking on their part. Yes, we as the educators want to guide them to that thinking, but we want them to be doing the thinking. So, what we've done is created a course structure and lesson structure to really pull that out for our students and to support our students at various levels. So let's take a look at our course structure. In general, we're going to see 8 units for our courses, and we'll note that those units are broken down into subunits with assessment built in and practice days before that assessment. So that's a really nice piece to be able to go back to. And then when we look at our learning progressions, these are based in illustrative mathematics. So those of you that are not familiar, illustrative mathematics is an open source curriculum. So anybody can use that to create a program. And there's kind of two spaces here. There's a certified IM program, and there's based in illustrative mathematics. We chose to be based in illustrative mathematics so that we can make some changes based on the research that we did with educators. Educators said, you know, we really like this pedagogical approach, that student-centered learning, but we found that in a certified IM space, we actually can't accomplish all the things that they've asked us to do. So we said, okay, let's make this an achievable amount of content. And then educators also said when we look at the lesson plan, it's a really heavy lift to get into that, to understand what the different portions are, a lot of different literature as you get into the lesson plan. So we said, let's make that clear, concise, and easy for you to use with your students. But the great things about illustrative mathematics really are those research learning progressions, right? So it's not a standard by standard lesson, it's conceptual dependencies. One thing builds on another throughout those courses, throughout those units. Our students have a really solid conceptual understanding in the beginning of units. We want to solidify that in different ways to then be able to apply and understand clearly why they're using procedures. So when all of that comes together, it's a really great space for math. When we look at a unit at a glance, we'll see again that nice clean scope and sequence here, those assessments built in, those practice days, and the progression from one thing to the next. I said achievable amount of content, right? We're going to give you that pacing right up front. We'll also provide some pacing considerations if we need to consolidate that a little bit more. That's nice because then you don't have to pick and choose. Maybe we wanted to complete that unit before a break or something. We're going to let you know what to do. The other thing you'll see on our unit at a glance is that concept development. So this is kind of what I was speaking to earlier. How are we building on all of those aspects of rigor and incorporating that throughout the unit? Once we get into a lesson, this is a structure that you may find to be a little bit different. So let's take a second and look at this. This is really it's called our proficiency progression, but it's a structure to elicit student thinking and to get them into those activities. When you look at these 5 things that we incorporate into the structure, you're probably doing most of these things. And many of you may be doing something pretty similar to this. I'll speak for myself in this space. When I first started teaching math, I learned math in a very traditional classroom. And I was really good at that because guess what I could do? I can memorize. So they showed me what I was supposed to do. I memorized it, replicated it, and got an A. Then, when I started working in mathematics as an educator in the elementary space at first, I was like, I have no conceptual understanding at all. And actually, working in elementary math helped me build that. When we look at this is not kind of that traditional approach, right? What I was doing at first, guiding to grade level understanding, is actually step 4 in our progression. So we're absolutely still going to have that. Explicit instruction is absolutely important. However, let's wait a little bit. Let's wait to see what our students know first, how they're going to solve some things. Let's collaborate so we can really build some confidence in math. And then us as educators will go to steps 3 and 4. We'll refine those ideas. We'll guide to grade level understanding. So when you look at our lesson plan, that's our structure. We're always going to start with a warm up. We've already done one of those, right? So we started with a little bit of that math informal language, potentially moving to formal language. Then we'll get into activities. There's typically 2 or 3 per lesson. We'll wrap it up. We'll come back together for that synthesis, right? Do we have that lesson takeaway? Everybody's there. You're guiding in that space. And then always opportunities for reinforcement, practice, etc. When you look at a lesson at a glance, it's going to be nice and clear. Okay. So we want to make it easy for you to see all of those different things that are happening in the lesson, the timing, the grouping, etc. You can see here in this particular one, we're starting in pairs, and then we're actually continuing in pairs on devices. So 2 students, 1 device. Let's look a little bit deeper at these activities, and we'll kind of look through the lesson progression, and then we'll try out a little bit of this. So our lesson activities, again, from our research, our teachers said we want a nice, clear piece to be able to see exactly what we're doing and to be able to support learners at various levels. So purpose right up front. You can see those 3 steps: launch, monitor, connect. How do we get students started? How do we connect that learning to those key understandings? And then how do we monitor what they're doing? Sorry, I kind of said that in a reverse order, right? Monitor and then connect to that key understanding. Within that monitor stage, we'll always provide you with differentiation to support, strengthen, and stretch learning right at that moment. You'll also see those instructional supports and routines like our math language routines, things for our multilingual English language learners, and then accessibility features. All of those fully built into the lesson. So intentional design to make sure that all of our students have access. And when we look back at that progression, this is really based in Smith and Stein's work for orchestrating discussion, right? So yes, our students are talking. We want them talking about math. How do we do that? Well, we start with that whole class piece. Then we have students working in individuals, pairs, and groups. We're monitoring that work using our differentiation, and then we're connecting that with you as the guide. At the end of every lesson, again, we have that synthesis. We'll bring everybody back. Opportunity for individual show what you know. That can be done in digital and print. Clear idea of where students are when you're looking at that digital piece. It'll do a quick little score for you of correct or incorrect. And then we'll use that opportunity after that for practice. Every single lesson has practice, both digital and print, fully customizable. And you can see on the right-hand side what type of practice that is. So are we going into some spiral review? Are we pulling in some test practice? So when you look at our structure, very clear. We know exactly what we're getting to. You have the pieces to support you to meet the needs of your learners. So I think we should try out a little bit of a digital lesson. Heath, I know you said you weren't ready for math today, but what do you think? Maybe a little bit more
I
today?
can do a little more math today before
Yeah, a
going and
little bit
enjoying
more
the
math.
sun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm going to jump online. I'll show you our digital dashboard, which for those of you who are familiar, awesome. This will look familiar. For those of you who aren't, this might be nice because if you want to try out some of these, you absolutely can on our free dashboard here. And then I will have us log in, those of you who are live with us, so that you can see what it looks like as students would be working on a digital activity. So we are going to share something else. Make sure this is loading. Okay, here we go. All right, so we are on our Amplify Desmos Math dashboard. Now, I obviously have the full curriculum. For those of you who just have a sample account or your free account, you do have access to some of these free resources. However, we'd be happy to kind of set you up with a little bit more structure here if you need that. When I scroll down, you'll see my high school courses on the bottom. And with a high school license, we have access to grades level 6 and up, which is nice. If we need to go back into prior content, we can. Okay, so let's go into geometry. We're going to go into the lesson that we did that warm up for. I click on my geometry course. We always start with that course overview. This is kind of like the front matter of a teacher's edition, right? You have all of those resources in print here. So you can use this digitally or you can go to the print resource. Also, access to our caregiver hub, which is a space for parents, guardians, caregivers to get an overview of kind of what's happening in that math. Now from here, I can use my left-hand navigation taskbar. So if I go into our first unit, this also starts with a nice little unit overview, gives me that progression of those learning concepts here in the top, and then of course all of those print materials on the bottom. So if I need that full teacher's edition or student edition, I have that here, the glossary, etc. Okay. And then let's look at the left-hand taskbar now. So I'm within my unit. You can see that our assessment pieces are built in, a pre-unit check, a little get to know each other in the beginning, and then here are our lessons. One thing to note is that when we have this little paper icon, that means it's a paper-based lesson. So we absolutely have opportunities for students to be working in paper pencil, right? And remember, you always have that notes page too, but we definitely want to get students, especially in geometry, using some of those tools. So you can see quite a few paper-based lessons throughout this unit. For our purposes today, though, since we are digital, let's try out a digital lesson. So I'm going to go to our first one, circles and segments. Now, this is a very introductory lesson. Okay, so this is the first thing that students are doing to play around with the geometry tool. We're just building, again, some conceptual understanding. This also gives you some insight into what students know already. So it's a really great way to start out the unit. When I look at my lesson plan, you see my instruction tab, and then I always have differentiation beyond the lesson as well, which is great. That's listed right here. The goals for the lesson, vocabulary, etc. And then when I scroll down, these are the screens that students will be interacting in. So you always have access to those right up front. You can kind of see what students are doing. If you click on those, it'll give you a nice little preview. But we're actually going to launch this and go live in just a minute. So we'll pause that for just a second as we scroll down a little bit further. Again, all of those paper resources on the bottom. Okay. So if you want to try out something with your students, you haven't done this before, I'm going to show you how to do that using our assign tool. For those of you who are familiar, you may not have used our geometry stuff yet, so this will be kind of fun too. But when you look over here on the right-hand side, For our purposes today, I'm going to create a single session code. When you have a full implementation, we work with your integrations team and our integrations team so that when you click assign, it just assigns to all of your students. You already have that rostered. Okay. But to try something out, this is a great way to start. You can click create single session code. And then note that it says allow users to join without signing in. You probably want to do that so students don't have to create an account. And then I'll just let this be available for 2 weeks just for fun. Create invite code. Okay. Now you can see on my screen, I have my teach button here. So that's what's going to take me to the dashboard. I like to open that in a new tab so that I can kind of go back and forth. That's just me, but you can also just click on that. But now it's loading my dashboard, and this will take just a minute because I got the Zoom going on, all the internets, all of their powers are being used here. There we go. All right. So to get online, this is all we have to do. You can go to student.amplify.com/join. Since we're in a Zoom, I'm going to drop this link in the chat as well for you. But you can get your students online just as simple as this is right here. Okay, so we go to this link and then they would get this, or pardon me, enter this code. Okay, so I'll drop that in the chat for you and we'll see if we can get a couple people on. Those of you who are live with us. Where's my chat? There it is.
I got you.
Okay.
It's in there.
Oh, it's in there already. Thanks, Heath. You're so
Oh, but your
fast.
link has the fancy code already at the end. I
Oh,
just did.
yeah, mine does. So it takes them
We're
right
making
there.
everyone's lives easier.
Yeah, we try. It's the little things that we do here. I'll wait just a second for us to jump online. Actually, I'm going to take this down for just 1 second because I'm going to do a little trick. Oops, not that. There we go. Okay, and put that back. See if we can get a couple people online. I just have you on that first warm-up screen. And this is just to give you an idea of how our teacher dashboard works using those facilitation tools, etc. Again, we're not going to get into some extreme mathematics today, although I know Heath wants to. Heath, you're going to have to wait for another day to get into serious geometry. We'll just play around with our geometry tool. Okay. All right, let's see. Where are we? A couple of us. No one else is live with us, Heath? Come on, people. You want to do some math? Get
I
the math
can't do math
going. We only have
alone.
Yeah. Okay. Well, oh, there we go. Thank you, Stephanie. Appreciate it. And the other thing I'm going to do, I'm not going to call anybody else out today. I'm going to put this on anonymize. And when we use that, this is a really great feature to use in our classrooms. I almost always have this teacher dashboard up so that we're looking at student work. But a lot of times, the connection to the student name for our students causes some serious math anxiety, right? So we use this anonymized tool. That changes all of the names to names of famous mathematicians, scientists, and literary artists now because we're in that field as well. So they're going to see a few different things come up here. But that's nice. As the teacher, I can always hover over that name to see who that is as well. Now, the other tool I've used is I've just pasted you to that first screen. Well, actually, I've synced you to me, so you're going to be on the same screen that I am. But the pacing tool is really great. Now, we've already done this warm up. We did that together just by looking at a screen that I provided for you. And a lot of teachers start with that, right? So it's a collaborative conversation. But you can see that if I have people online, it's going to give me an overview of what we chose. It's not centered, okay? Then from there, on the top, note I have my different activities. Now, through those activities, typically we kind of pace to certain screens. Okay, so you can see that I'm going to restrict to screens 2, 3, and 4. And what that does is allows students to get started in that, to move at their pace, but within the activity. Again, we're guiding this lesson. So when I go to the bottom of my screen, you're going to see my teacher moves, and it's showing me different pieces to launch this. What am I monitoring and looking for as students are working? Again, this is the very introductory use of a geometry tool. Okay, so we're really just getting students started on this piece. When I look at the student screen here, also might be helpful to give a little example. When some people use this first, they're like, it's not working. Remember, we have to use these points, okay? So we can create different things here. but we have to use those intersectionalities of different spaces. Okay, so we're kind of playing around. Now, if I go back to my teacher side, I can see what's gotten started here. So live view of people creating their different pictures here on this one. And then on the right-hand side, any comments that we had to get into that. Okay. So I can also see on the top of my screen, I have one person who's potentially already completed this and moved on to the next one. I can use my summary as that view as well, right? So that's going to show me kind of where people are, what they have completed. If it's a correct or incorrect answer, it's going to give me a check mark or an X here. So a nice little at a glance. Couple other tools as you're kind of playing around and listening to me in the background. We can also use, we've really gotten started on this one. Okay, some people got their designs. The design is going. So we can use this tool called a snapshot. So I'm looking at student responses here. And let's say I want to save this one. I can select this, and then you'll note on the right-hand side, I have a couple of options. Maybe I'm going to bring everybody back together. Hate to do this to you, but yeah, pause. Teacher control, folks. We have to have that space over our students. Heath, I know your design was looking good. It really was. You were almost there. But that pause tool is a great feature, right? We're going to bring students back. Again, we are the guide. We're facilitating. Maybe we're talking about the specific design. I can present that right here from my snapshots, or maybe I want to save that later, save it to use later. Note that that's going to go up here in my snapshot tool, and I can have that space here too. Another really cool feature, which those of you who have used Desmos before may not know about, up here, companion mode, I use this all the time now. It allows you scan the QR code on your phone, and then it makes it so that you can facilitate on your phone and or take pictures, and then it drops the picture into your snapshots. So when I'm working on vertical non-permanent surfaces in an activity, I want to collect that, right? I want to save that learning. I pull that back into this activity, which is awesome. Okay. So for the sake of time, I am going to release you to the wild, but I'm going to go back to my presentation and kind of wrap up our overview. But I'll let you have access to this if you want to go into a couple other things from that. There's some great pieces in this where you actually create your own activity here and share that out too. So I'll leave that open. If you want to come back to that at any time, you can. But let's get back to our course overview so that we can see how we kind of wrap up with that assessment and reporting. All right, so we took a deep dive into that teacher dashboard. You can see a lot of great facilitation tools there. Of course, all of your print resources. Let's look at this last piece. How does our student thinking really drive instruction? Well, you saw that in our lesson. In the monitor stage, we're using our differentiation table to pull out those responses, to be able to share, talk about different strategies to guide to that grade level understanding. When we look at our informal show what you know, you have that as well. So digital and print forms, it's going to give you that quick little synopsis if you're doing a digital lesson. And then after that lesson, I showed you that tab, right? Differentiation after the lesson. Of course, it's also listed in your teacher's edition. We always have options after the lesson. Okay, so support, strengthen, and stretch. How can we meet our students where they are? We're going to link to prior skills and concepts and provide you with suggestions to be able to use. You always have practice, but sometimes we can do more than practice, right? And sometimes our students need more than practice, or they don't need any more practice. From the mouth of my third grade nephew, he's like, Auntie, if I have to do another worksheet on math, I was like, I know, bud, like you got this, but that's what your teacher's asking. Let's do something different. Let's do an extension, something like that, or a non-curricular task. Okay. So we do have those in our stretch piece for differentiation. And then, of course, formal assessment is going to help us drive instruction as well. You saw that built into the scope and sequence. That pre-unit check, sub-unit quiz, end-of-unit assessment can be done in digital and print, fully customizable as well. And that will link to our reporting. Those of you who've used free Desmos, this didn't exist, right? One of the things that you asked for, we absolutely want those reporting features to help us easily guide instruction. Our pre-unit check will be that quick incorrect, correct to kind of see where our students are. And then for our more formal piece at the end, we're going to have, you can see on the top of the screen, those progressions, how students are doing by skill or standard. So beginning, developing, approaching, meeting. You can see you can sort by different things here, and you can customize percentages for grades, which is great. Okay. After those assessment pieces, we do also have assess and respond. So we're able to take a look at how our students did. We're going to let you see how we can support learning, how we can strengthen that for students, and what they may need in terms of differentiation. So, as we wrap up our quick overview today, I'll leave you with this. It's really a great question for us in the high school mathematics space. What do we want math to be? Yes, in a traditional space, I did learn mathematics. I'm a great at procedure. The concepts are still coming to me, right? I think in what we're going towards in mathematics today is that our students have a really well-rounded mathematics space. Those concepts of rigor, both that conceptual understanding, procedural, fluency, and application, that all of that, that they understand how math goes outside of a classroom, and that they're using those different approaches so that it's applicable to their lives. All right, Heath, that's our overview for today. What questions do we
Yeah.
got coming in?
Well, I got a question about a very odd glitch someone had happen in their classroom the
Ooh,
other day where everyone was suddenly synced to one of the students instead of the teacher.
what?
So I know. I've never heard that one. So I'm going to take that one
Never.
back
Oh
to
my
the
gosh,
team.
madness.
Yeah, that is madness. So, Ashley, thank you for sharing that. And we will make sure that that is something our team is aware that happened and we can make sure it doesn't
Yeah,
happen
yeah,
again. Yeah.
definitely. I've never heard that.
No, that's funny, but not funny in the moment for
Funny,
you,
but
I'm
not
sure,
funny.
Ashley.
Yeah.
Um,
Except the students are always into that though. They're like, what's happening?
now I'm in control.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, what else?
Any other
Any
questions?
other questions, folks?
Thank you for making me do some math today. That was,
Yeah, that I mean, that warm-up question is nice because my third grade nephew could also answer that question. But yeah, it's a great way to get started.
um, yes, assessments are also customizable, Deborah. So any digital activity, any student-facing resource, you can make a copy of and customize as you see fit to meet the needs of your students. The one caveat to that is when it feeds into reporting.
Hmm.
Our assessments feed into something called the standards report, which will report out based on standards. If you make a copy of an assessment and customize it, it will no longer feed into the standards assessment just because we don't know what a teacher is going to go do when they make a copy of an assessment, and we can no longer say for sure that yes, this item is tracked to this standard, but
Yeah.
it will still feed into that other assessment report you saw.
Yeah, and that makes sense when you're creating something or adding something on your own. We don't know exactly what that is, but yep. Yeah, percentage grade, that's a customizable piece. So once you have that end of unit assessment, you can go in and create what you want that percentage to be for specific grading.
Yeah, there's a default percentage set to each
Hmm.
score on the rubric. But yeah, you can change that to be whatever you want. I know a lot of people are like, if they got it right, I want 100%. If they got it wrong, 0%. Your traditional a crosswalk of standards to Kentucky standards.
Oh,
Oh,
that I
Deborah,
don't know
that
the answer to.
is a great question. I'm going to drop my email address in the chat. If you shoot me an email with that question, I can look into it and either send them to you if we have them or let you know that we don't have them and by when we might.
Yeah, Deborah, I have yet to work in Kentucky. I have quite a few states checked off, but I haven't been to Kentucky yet, so don't know the answer. Other questions for us today? Oh, nice. Yeah, so Ashley, you definitely have those Common Core standards, and then we do have alignments for various states. We're looking into Kentucky for Deborah, but we have many of those already built out too. Just dumped water on myself, folks. That's fine. Don't worry about me over here.
It's
That's the
fine.
one thing I like. I'm an analogine for lifer, but it is the spilling that I do understand why people have different water bills. I know.
It's time to upgrade.
I
We
should, but
have,
this
as
is
a
so light. When
society,
traveling, it's easy. All right, Deborah's question about snapshots. Yes, they stay in the lessons, and that's why I love that that companion mode piece too. When I have students working like on a digital thing to start, then maybe we're working on a non-permanent surface. I take a picture of that. It always lives in the lesson. And actually, let me show you all something really quick. If you've used Desmos before and you're like, I don't see that companion mode, you may not have enabled that. So let me show you how to do that really quickly so that when you all try this out, it will be there. So if you go down to your profile, if you have a free account, okay. And then click Amplify Labs. This is where we put all of our beta stuff. So this is going to probably be coming off of beta pretty soon because we've been using it. It's very, very popular. But you can see all of these different things are things that we have developed based on teacher feedback. They said, we want this. We're like, let's make it happen. So in beta, we have a few different things, but companion mode is one of those. So make sure that is selected. And then when you go into a dashboard, you will have this right here. Okay. So you just scan this, you log into your account, and then you can take a picture, and those pictures will always be saved in the snapshots. Yep. You'll always have access to those different lessons that you have. If it's a customized lesson, you have that in my content. Which is right, or my stuff, which is right here. And you can always access that, which is great. Oh, yeah, teaching the calculator skills. Um, I'm trying to think of something. I know I saw something on that recently, but that's almost like what we just did with the geometry tool, right? It's the teaching of how to use that at first. I can't think of it off the top of my head. Um, but I think there is a lesson where they get into that.
yeah, and I think like we saw in the geometry lesson, a lot of the warm-ups will sort of get
Yeah.
students into the technology and
I wonder.
used to what they're doing with it instead of
Yeah,
us
yeah, yeah.
having a lesson that explicitly is like, here's how to use the calculator. We'll sort
Yeah.
of like introduce bits and bops of it here and there for them to play around with in that sort of warm-up, no wrong answer environment.
Exactly. Yeah, I was wondering if it's in because now there's for the courses there's like the meet and greet lesson at the very front of the units. I wonder if that's where I saw it. It was
Maybe.
the yeah,
Yeah.
getting into that.
Paula, for pricing and integration information, the email you get tomorrow with the recording will have a link to our sample site. I'm going to drop that URL into the chat right now. There's a form on that site where you can fill out your info and say, I want to talk to somebody. And then your Amplify rep will get in touch so we can talk more about like what it is you're looking to adopt, how many kids, yada, 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 all of that stuff that would be drivers for that.
Absolutely. Yeah, great ideas, Ashley. It's an important piece. All right, folks, anything else for our time today? Ooh, thanks for dropping the sample in there.
Yeah. Yeah. And that site, although that's, never mind, that's not our high school site, but if you want to learn more about high school specifically, you can go to this site here and click around into some sample lessons and units from there. There's a form on both sites. We will get you in touch with who you want to talk to if you give us your information.
Yep. Oh, Deborah, the QR code. So yes, it is available on demo accounts as well. It just has to be enabled. So make sure you go down to the bottom where it says profile, Amplify Labs, and then enable it from there. Yeah, so it's probably, if you don't see it, it probably just isn't enabled yet. Yeah, such a fun tool to use.
All right, I'll do my best teacher pause for any final questions here. Cass, thank you as always for your
Yeah,
expertise.
absolutely.
I will forgive you somehow for making me unexpectedly do high school math.
And for calling you Keith.
Yeah, it's fine. That one happens all the time.
It probably is not connected to my vertigo symptoms. Another conversation, people, for another
Yeah,
day.
ask
It's
your
it's a
doctor.
wild world out here.
All right. If there's no other questions, thank you again, everyone, for joining us on what I'm sure were busy days in classrooms across the country. You'll get
Yes.
an email tomorrow with the recording. I dropped my email in the chat. Don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions, something that keeps you up at night, like I should have asked that on the webinar. You know where to find us. Don't be shy. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.